All right, you've been telling me about the arbitrariness of language, about cosmology, ontology as a whole, the system of all things that exist. What was your question?
What's the utility the of the idea that if nothing actually exists, what's the utility for a human being in that?
Well,
Other than, okay, well, nothing exists and all meaning is kind of subjective. What does that do for a human being that is, nevertheless, to use the word, stuck in such reality?
is this not a normative statement? So you'd want some practicality, something intrinsic, something that is useful in a universal manner, something that is mind independent. So, for instance, a heroin addict might find some use in cigarette butts on the ground, and someone else might say this is not productive at all. So you would appeal to something that's greater to the self, greater than the subjective. You want something objective. But in the first place, you admitted that if we grant this opinion that the universe doesn't care about us, that we came along and we invented concepts, that they're arbitrary, that they're no more significant than a thought, a subjective thought, well then, doesn't this question defeat itself?
Yes, but it doesn't reject everything that's actually happening. As an example, if you get stabbed in your abdomen, all that just goes to the trash. You understand? Because now you've been stabbed in your abdomen, and now you have to do something about it. That's what I'm saying.
About maybe 900 or maybe 1100 years ago, there's the Germanic word lif or life. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. I'm not fully a full-fledged linguist. But the word life, as we understand it presently, did not exactly exist in the Germanic vernacular. It meant body. And it went through quite a few changes and evolved. We developed an understanding of cellular biology in the 19th century. So you might go to the Homeric poems back when you would breathe life, you would exhale life, and something like that. Greek words had these undertones. But before then, if you were to speak the modern concept of life, that something exists, something has animation and whatever, I don't think our distant ancestors would completely understand it. So then going back to this question of being stabbed in the chest, it's hard to understand it back then. Today, it's a catastrophe. It means the end of joy, the taste of ice cream, the smell of lilies and whatever. All the excitement, waking up, having a happy hour and whatever, this all goes away. Did our ancestors understand it this way? Well, they certainly did feel pain. But I feel that language had taken a life on it of its own, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but it still doesn't change the start. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is, like, even if nothing did exist, it still doesn't change the fact that, as an example, like someone in your family dies and that's terrible for you. Or like it doesn't change the fact that, again, you get stabbed and you're going through pain, and now you gotta try to make that go away. The life you're in and the cage that we're all in continues, perseveres until we die, and none of us know what happens after we die. We're all using language, as you're saying, to describe what happens after. And everybody has different experiences. So it could be the case that death for you is not the same death for me. It could be the case.
René Descartes, one of those famous philosophers about
French guy.
French guy indeed.
Yeah.
He happened to be very knowledgeable about arteries and the circular system for animals, including human beings. And he held expositions of dissecting an animal in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And he explained the heart, how it connects to other organs, and so forth. And he did so without anesthetics, so the animal was screaming in pain. But he was explaining that this was all mechanistic, mechanical. The animal was a robot. The screams were a sensory output. How could we be different? Descartes would say that our connection between this body, this cluster of molecules, the structure, the composition, all that. So what makes us different from other animals, the human being's an animal, what makes us different is that we have a soul, and the soul, immaterial, invisible, is connected at the pineal gland. That we're somehow special. I don't think he said that we're God's chosen children. But it's a little bit awkward, wouldn't you say, that we're animals, there are other animals, but we should be granted the grand exception where if I should get a paper cut, this feels real. But the animals he dissected, while they were very much alive, that were screaming, wincing in pain, they were having mechanical responses to inputs and producing outputs. What would you say about that?
I would say that it doesn't make any difference. Because the pain is, even if the pain is not real in a general sense outside of the person experiencing it, it's still the experience that you're gonna get. You're in a cage and you can't leave until you're dead. End of story. Dementia, breaking a bone, cancer, you can't escape it. So what I'm saying is what you're doing is you're dissecting life in a certain way and kind of like disconnecting things, which is fine, and you're allowed to disconnect like life and experience from the everythingness that, as you're saying, may not even exist. But either way, those things are going to be real to you. So at the end of the day, it's all real anyways. It's as real as it's going to be for you, and that's the only experience you'll ever feel. Maybe. You'll ever feel maybe until after you're dead.
So then, what would be the difference between a tornado gaining strength, or a hurricane rather, gaining strength and then waning? Would you say that the hurricane would be feeling pleasure, pain, improving in a healthy, what do you call it? I don't remember the word exactly. But what is the difference between a hurricane gaining strength and a human being reaching his prime? Would you say that the distinction exists, or that we defined it by language?
I think the distinction is the feeling. Hurricanes don't feel. Hurricanes aren't living beings, so they don't feel cuts, and they don't feel like, oh God, I'm leaving. Oh no, this hurricane is vanishing. They don't feel like, oh God, I'm vanishing. You know what I mean?
Where are these feelings? What generates these feelings?
Your body. The body you're stuck with.
The neurons?
Yeah, sure.
We have on average, 86 billion neurons, nerve cells, and they have two functions. They've got an input and an output. What comes in, what comes out. Somewhere in between, we say that there's consciousness, that our sensory experiences, whether it be touch, taste, smell, all these things, they get transformed somehow, and you have a sensation, a feeling, and it comes out. And that's supposed to be different from phenomena, non-conscious phenomena.
Yeah.
My deepest question of all is whether this phenomena could be considered different, a human's phenomena, different from a hurricane's phenomenon.
Like you're asking if it's different?
Yes.
It is. Well, it is in that there is that translation. Hurricanes don't have that translation.
What if it was because we just defined our own experiences?
It has nothing to do with language. Like you proved it with the frog. When you're cutting the frog, even if you're saying it's mechanical or not, it's feeling that. Whether, like, it's feeling something negative is what I'm saying. You see the difference? So a hurricane won't have the neurons. We do. So we are, in a sense, not cursed, but we are in a place where we feel these things. Now, if you get an animal that doesn't have a sense of feeling at all, that animal, in a sense, is not trapped in that reality. And that's why I come back to, it's the cage that we are in. So that's where meaning is divorced from reality at that point, or like the feeling of that we have, the reality we experience of pain is that it all kind of comes back together then at that point for us.
I'm thinking, so it's undeniable. If I were to take a lighter or a lit cigarette butt and put it against my forearm, I'd certainly feel pain. It would hurt very badly. But to make it appear to the world that it really hurts badly, I'd have to say, ouch, ouch, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to kind of put it in words.
You wouldn't have to put it in words. What if you had a kid that never learned words and then you stabbed him? He
And
wouldn't feel pain?
I would believe so, perhaps.
Exactly.
But then I wouldn't know about
He wouldn't
a
rationalize
charger. I wouldn't know about a charger that I've unplugged. How a computer would feel when it runs out of its source of power.
because it doesn't have that translation. We do.
Or what about language?
Language is divorced from that.
But then that is to ask the question, well, if not language, then how can we know the problem of other minds?
See, you can see it. You can see it.